Alex, there is actual news this morning.
Why is that? Why would that happen on the weekend?
I don't know.
Because Japan, pretty much?
Hot fantasy football update. One of mine went well, one of mine went okay, one of mine went great.
One of mine went really well, one of mine is not going so well. That's all I got.
I feel that's the benefit of... There are two things. One, if you have multiple fantasy leagues, it's very stressful because oftentimes you have to take contradictory positions during a game, which is like you want, say, the defense to take it away because you got that defense playing, but that quarterback or that receiver is someone who is key to you winning. But it also means that when you have a league go very wrong, and one of mine went about as wrong as possible, like I was not the only one who had Stephen Ridley as like he's going to do pretty well on Sunday, and then 2 points.
Oh yeah, that was a real bummer.
Like, that sucks. So that really wrecked me, and just I had other things that went wrong in that league, and the Ravens had -6 for me there, and so. But then you've got these other ones where everything's going well, and so then you can try and balance yourself out.
Yeah, I'm doing very well in our league, thanks mostly to Denver and having their top wide receiver, and I'm doing very, very bad in the league that I'm doing with the Giant Bomb users, actually, and also my girlfriend is in that league.
You want to let them win. You want to let them win. Hey, that's
Do I
keep subscribers?
I don't know if I care enough about my financial well-being and the site's financial well-being to want to lose at fantasy football, to be honest with you. So
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, but so I mostly spent this weekend watching a whole lot of football and playing a few video games here and there. I don't know about you. The only thing I managed to really squeeze in was the end of Gone Home, which I basically finished when we did our show last week, but I wanted to do like the last 20, 30 minutes or something.
Over the
weekend.
It's actually the part of the reason that like I'm very excited that football's back, but Sunday is prime real estate for video games.
Oh yeah.
And
key time.
That is gone for the next 6 months, and there's a lot happening in the next 6 months.
Oh yeah, no, there's some video games coming out, so there's gonna have to be some time balance worked on here. Like what I've decided is since I'm in New York, anytime TV is showing a Jets game, that's when I'm gonna play video games.
Okay. Although the Jets are the #1 team in New York right now, technically.
Yeah, that's really something.
So,
that's the case.
I felt for Jason Schreier on Twitter, and I'm glad that he gets this one moment where the Jets are anything.
Congratulations, you beat the Buccaneers, maybe the ononly team with a greater history of futility than say the Jets and the Jaguars. So yeah, good work there. I think it's still too close to Gone Home for us to get too deep into spoiler territory, sure.
But certainly the game has produced sort of divisive opinions. Either you sort of love it or it's sort of not what you want out of games.
Right.
So where did you end up falling?
I actually was nowhere near as divided as a lot of people, most people seem to be. I was kind of more close to the middle spectrum, which is to say that I quite enjoyed it. I think that from a storytelling perspective, it understands its characters very well, or the characters that it decides to focus on. It does a nice job of meting out information over time without forcing you to just kind of frantically run around in this house and do all this stuff. I will say that by the end of it, I kind of figured out where it was going. I kind of figured out what the fake outs were going to be and what the actual where it was going to wrap itself up to. So it didn't really surprise me very much, but that said, I did very much like what it was trying to do, and I think that on most counts, it executed in a way that worked for me. I can understand why some people were not huge fans of it. I mean, yeah, it's a very mechanics-like game. It's more about exploration and just sort of discovery through, what happens to be there than any sort of real, intensity or heavy interactivity or tension, really. I mean, there's a little bit here and there, but for the most part it's kind of like a I'm just discovering things game, and that's fine. I think that can be done well, and I think Gone Home is a good example of that.
I think it being relatively mundane and not that surprising is actually part of the reason why it works and is surprising, because it doesn't take it plays with your I'm sure I can't go into Gone Home without having played years and years of video games. I bring that with me, and the game plays upon that. And I'm curious what that game is like if you don't bring that with you, because it often sets you up for situations where, hey, this is where the twist has happened. Hey, this is where the alien comes around the corner, and you realize that all the bodies are in the basement.
Yeah.
And that moment never happens. And it's not a spoiler to say it doesn't happen, because I think that sets your expectations.
I think we've all pretty much said this isn't a horror game.
Right.
That's not really what it is.
But even if you know that going into it, and I knew that, like Steve had told me both in private and as he has said publicly, like, there's no monster in the game, and yet it plays against your expectations in really spectacular ways. And even when you think you've figured it out, and you have figured it out, the game still kind of plays with you and at least leaves a little room for, oh, this is going to turn into a video game at the end of this. Like, we're going to get abducted at the end and set up the sequel. And none of that happens. And it is that relief at the end that it is just the story, and that's all there is to it. And that's it. And that's, it will be wonderful if in 10 years that's a cliche. But right now, it being simple and to the point and just touching in a relatable story is very refreshing in video games.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing I'll say is that, from a storytelling perspective, the narrative of that game is very much like a really well-crafted young adult novel. And I don't mean that in like a disparaging way, saying young adult fiction, because some like good young adult fiction is a hard thing to come by nowadays, and it's not just because the characters in the game primarily are teenagers or like late teenagers, whatever. It's that it has that progression of sort of like taking a skeletal structure of a story that you kind of understand, you can see what beats they're going for, what stuff they're doing with, and they flesh it out in a way that's really nice. It's really effective. The details that you find as you're exploring the house are really well done. They're like you say in the review, there's so much stuff for you to just kind of like poke around and discover and find, and I think that stuff is really, really well done. It's not, a game that's going to bowl you over with its revelations or, knock you back on your ass as far as like, where it all comes around to, but it has a really nice, sweet, thoughtful sensibility to it, which I really appreciated. And it does nail a lot of the details of, being a dumb teenager in the 90s, especially. The fucking constant mixtapes you're finding everywhere, and the whole Riot Girl thing. That stuff is very, very, very well done, I thought.
Yeah, the high-res imagery throughout that game is astounding. And, yeah, it could not have been constructed unless you lived in that area, because it is so meticulous and so on point that it is clearly, Steve Gaynor was a man, and the other people behind that game were people that lived through the 90s and had the same obsessions that all of us did. And finding stacks of VHS tapes of X-Files seasons, and that not only are there stacks of VHS tapes of X-Files seasons, but that they are precisely numbered for the amount of episodes you could fit on each VHS tape. And I remember asking the team about that detail, saying like, "Oh, there's no way you did that," and they did. They figured out what tape they wanted to feature and how much that episode, how many episodes could fit on that tape, and stacked and labeled accordingly. And that is the kind of attention to detail that I truly love, because that is something else.
What shows did you keep on VHS when you were a kid? I remember my dad would occasionally tape movies off HBO, so we had like a copy that was just Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice that I basically wore out, because those were the only two movies we bothered to tape. And then I had a million old I think Danger Mouse and You Can't Do That on Television episodes taped to VHS.
I didn't do a whole lot of VHS taping for whatever. I mean, I had them. But I didn't have like stacks of archives to go through. But that was also because my parents were essentially religious about taking us to the Family Video, which was sort of the local chain down the street. As my memory recalls, on a near daily basis. I'm sure it was not actually daily, but it sure felt like it. So there was sort of always kind of a constant churn through the house of picking up some new game and picking up some new film. So I didn't have to do the archive stuff, but I was absolutely religious about watching every new X-Files episode. That was my thing.
Well, I can
back
see why
then.
Gone Home especially spoke to you then.
Oh yeah, damn straight. And it makes
Uh,
me if you're a fan of X-Files, there is a persistent rumor that they are going to give X-Files the Star Trek treatment starting later this year, where they are taking the original film, using that combined with some CGI trickery to turn everything into widescreen and update the effects, because that is a show that could use it. And
yeah,
hot damn, would that look fucking awesome if they did that.
I'm totally okay with that. Other than that, all I really played was some more NHL 14, which is fine if you like hockey.
Sports.
I won't dwell on sports too much because I think we've already hit people
We
over
hit
the
our
head a little
quota,
too
I
much with
think,
sports
yeah.
this morning. Yeah. What did you play this weekend? What did you spend your time with?
Well, I snuck in a couple hours of Papers, Please, which I'm going to start playing. I've got Rayman coming next week, so that's going to be sort of my plan to be my palate cleanser in between all these horror games in the beginning of September out of nowhere. But Papers, Please, is a game that huge fan of when I played the web version, and was curious to see how that was expanded out to I think there are 8 days in the web version, and there are 31 days, a full month, in the full game. And man, that whole thing is just astounding in its ability to tear you in a million different directions. I love that. I even love the achievement system, which are these coins you collect from people in different countries, and essentially it's when, well, at least the times when I've received the coin so far, it's when you are a human being, where you essentially sacrifice your ability to be efficient to let someone through, and it is amazing how it sets up those moral quandaries where what you should be doing in order to feed your family and shelter them the best is the exact opposite of what you need to be doing to be, I guess, a moral person, and to get these achievements if that actually is interesting to you. And it's not normally interesting for me, but I thought the way it's set up here is often directly tied to the moments where you have to sacrifice. Maybe you've already got 2 violations, and if this third violation is going to be the one where they take away 5 credits, it seems like they tie those achievement moments to the times when you actually are thinking about, hey, maybe I should sort of sacrifice for this person so they can come see their son. It's just wonderful all around. It's got a great, interesting story to tell that is going in some crazy directions right now.
Oh yeah.
That I'm about 10 days in. I'm kind of just like plucking away like 2 or 3 days every day. It seems like the right pace to go. Like, I think funneling through that game as fast as possible is not maybe the way to do it, because the actual game mechanics don't change a whole lot each day. They vary it up so that you have to kind of be on your toes. And I actually love that I discovered that there's essentially 0 consequence to just quitting and starting, a day over or going back to a previous day, because there are, I think, 12 different endings. Or more than that. There's a ton of different endings.
There's quite a few. I've only gotten like 2 of them because I've
and the game encourages you to go back and, hey, figure out other ways to do this or make a different decision at a crucial moment. There's, for example, a section where I think it's the Ministry of Information. They ask you to hand a document to an agent that's coming up in 2 or 3 people, and you don't have to do that. You can choose to mix up the documents, and I followed orders how I was told by the first agent, but there'd be every reason to go back to that day and see, well, what the hell changes, when you change that, and then how does that affect, the endings you get. And then I think there are different endings based on, like, I think a lot of them seem relative to how poorly you do early on, and if you start to lose your family and you're not good at your job. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything more to be said about that game than already has been said, except to say that having got around to actually playing the full game, highly, highly recommended. Like, it is easily going to be one of those games that we are talking about at the end of the year. I am certain, just because it does such an amazing job of the mechanics are really satisfying in a mundane sort of way because you're just following rules. But it's that application of those rules that is really satisfying when you get through a day and there are no violations, and you've detained 3 people, and you're going to get 5 credits for that because you made a deal with a guy on the back end to get his bonus. And, oh no, they're probably killing those people that they detain. Why wasn't I thinking about that when I made that deal?
I was thinking about that.
Oh, God damn it.
The thing I will say about Papers, Please, I've played through it a couple of times now. I've gotten a couple of the endings. I don't know. I don't think they were good endings, but that's fine. I've mostly been sticking to the bureaucracy of it all. And the thing I will say that game has taught me that something I kind of already knew, but definitely hammered it home for me is that I am the world's worst multitasker, especially if you give me a time limit.
Sure.
Man, it's like I totally get what I'm supposed to be doing every single time with that game. Even when they add more rules, I get it. I understand. Okay, I'm on the list. I'm looking at the list. But as soon as you put that time limit on me, it's like I cannot put anything in order. I cannot think, okay, well, I did this last time, so I'm going to do this way this time, but I have to add this. It's just like it becomes this horrible, jumbled mess in my brain where I cannot remember what I've done and what I haven't done. So I end up like guessing a lot of the time, and then just guessing very wrong, especially toward the end of the game when it's like, oh, you didn't check that person's expiration date, that person's name didn't match up, that was a woman. You know, it's like things that should have been super obvious early on suddenly stop being available to my brain to perceive, and it fucked me on that game because as soon as I had to be really meticulous about it, and I stopped doing any of the interesting stuff toward the end because I couldn't get through it otherwise without like a ton of penalties.
Your
So
poor family. Your
at
poor
some point,
family.
yeah, at some point, I'm gonna have to go back through there and figure out how to be better at doing any of the things it asks me to do because I would like to get one of the good endings eventually, but probably not for a little while.
Probably not. Yeah,
Should we
there's
get
a lot of games coming out. Puppeteer comes out this week.
I know, right? Where did that come from?
Well, that game was sent to die, which is really unfortunate because that
Yeah.
game looks wonderful, and I promise to you, Puppeteer, I will play you at some point. Also, $40. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad they are charging what they think is an appropriate price, but I will admit that shocked me somewhat.
You know, they're trying to. I mean, it's like you said, it's being sent off kind of to die. This week's not so bad compared with others, but it's definitely they're not giving it a lot of a push. I think they're kind of relying on reviews to push that game, which is never. It's never a good sign that the business people have any faith in it whatsoever. When PR is being sent off to do the bulk of the legwork to get a game sold, that usually means that they don't have any business reason to get behind it. They're like, whatever, just hope the hardcore people buy it if the reviews are good, whatever.
Yeah, don't trust us. Don't trust us.
No, by all means, do not.
So there was.
Speaking of Sony,
there was a press conference last night, which made me think like, oh God, is TGS this week? And then we looked before we launched this, and no, TGS is not this week. TGS is next week. But I have briefly looked at this stuff, but we are essentially going to react in real time to a lot of this stuff. So I think the big news if you live in Japan is that the launch date is not until February.
February 22nd.
Yeah, which is not completely shocking to me. My I haven't read their commentary or if they've talked to analysts about that, but my gut reaction to releasing 3 months later in Japan is Sony just being rightfully recognizing that the battleground is in the West, and it is so vital. They're going to win Japan. It's unfortunate for anyone that lives in Japan that they're not going to be able to get a PS4 at launch or in the window that everyone else is.
But they will get one.
It's an irrelevant territory in terms of what the battlegrounds are in terms of winning this generation or getting a strong early foothold. And so it seems like the allocation of units is all going to Europe and to the U.S. to make sure that any damn person that wants to buy a PS4 to some reasonable degree will be able to do one. And that just seems like smart business. That does seem like the smart move. Of course, I say that as someone in the West that is going to be getting it in November. But it is critically important that they get an early lead as much as possible out here, if that's possible.
Yeah, for me, I never expected that thing to come out this year at all in Japan. They basically said that it was going to be probably a Q1 thing. And February 22nd, while 3 months after it's coming out in Europe and even I think a little bit more than that in the U.S., is not a crazy amount of time for, like you said, a territory that is guaranteed to buy your damn system no matter what. I don't remember if they've even said if the Xbox One is going to come to Japan in the next year. Like I can't remember any news saying specific. I mean, I know it's not coming at launch, so I mean, who knows when that thing's going to hit there. And the Wii U is flagging everywhere, so it's not. I mean, even if it's doing okay in Japan, that's not going to stop people from going out and buying a PS4 in 3 months. Yeah. Like you said, it's Europe and it's North America, and eventually it's places like South America and possibly even like Middle East. There's a million other territories that are becoming interesting battlegrounds now. Japan is practically a foregone conclusion at this point, and so it sucks for Japan, but if you're Sony, this is strategically absolutely the right move, 100%.
Well, and part of the reason that you launch in these other territories is to get a consumer base there, so the developers feel confident developing for the console in that territory, and there is absolutely zero competition for the kinds of games. So the Wii U is irrelevant because the kinds of games being made for PS4 and Xbox One, maybe some of them can be scaled for the Wii U, but by and large, these are separate SKUs, these are separate games, separate experiences. So the Wii U doesn't even factor into that equation, even if it was doing much better than it is now. The Xbox One has zero foothold in Japan except for what Microsoft buys up, like Crimson Dragon, or if they partner with Sakaguchi again. But that's all going to come from a money hat. That's not going to come from a place of confidence in a Japanese user base they can sell to. So Sony can just assume that Japan is a checkbox. So it sort of, as a result of those reasons, they can just focus on other territories where they want European developers, they want American developers, they want those people focusing on maybe giving a little preferential treatment to the PS4, or maybe considering doing exclusivity windows. So it makes sense for all those reasons for them to just kind of put all of their eggs in this basket, especially when you start reading the financial analysis of how important the PlayStation 4 is to the overall financial future of Sony. This is not just about the PlayStation or the games division. This is a much bigger game that is being played for sort of the heart of Sony going forward.
Right. Now, speaking of things that aren't necessarily core to Sony's business model at this very moment, there was also a number of PlayStation Vita stuff announced at this event.
Yeah.
Now, the main thing, the craziest thing by far, is the announcement of the PlayStation Vita TV device.
Yeah.
This is a little box thing, very small.
Unexpected.
You can plug into, basically, you plug into your TV. It comes with a DualShock controller. You can play Vita carts on it, and it will hook into your TV. It will do PS4 streaming, if you have that, and it has like some rudimentary video service stuff on it too. It's basically like Sony saying, "Hey, we're going to do our own little version of the Apple TV or what have you." It is not currently slated to come to America, but it is currently slated to come out in Japan for about the American equivalent of $100. I don't know.
How does this PS4 remote play work? Like, it
probably works the same way the Vita did. It's the same way the Vita, because the Vita has the streaming.
So you turn on your
PS4 games onto your Vita.
So you turn on your PS4, and then the PS4 talks to this thing, and then that thing.
Yeah, and then that thing would theoretically be plugged into another TV somewhere, I guess. Like if you wanted to play PS4 games in another room on another TV, you could feasibly do it that way.
Okay, so if you could put this in like the other side of your house and have the PS4 in your main game room, but like have this little box in, like, let's say your bedroom, and it could beam all that stuff, assuming that you have a house that doesn't have issues with, let's assume the best case scenario. That sounds pretty cool.
I think it's a neat sounding device, but it's also one of those things that seems like it's solving a problem that no one had except Jeff, who has been trying to find a way to get footage of Vita games since that thing came out.
Oh, that's right. It's going to have HDMI, TV or HDMI.
Yeah.
But it won't, I would assume that there is no way for this thing to play touch-based games, right?
That does not. Yeah, that sounds like it's basically designed for games that don't require a lot of touchscreen stuff. Like there's actually
Tearaway is not going to be playable.
There's a straight up list of supported games for that thing. So that sounds like it's not going to be the thing for that. So with that in mind, it is not a Vita replacement.
Right.
But it does have this sort of functionality and this kind of this thing, and that is kind of cool, I guess. Again, it feels like it's solving a very small problem, which is not really the main problem people have with the Vita, which is that A, it doesn't have a whole lot of games, and B, no one's buying it.
But sure, you're right. But like, what if like PlayStation Plus like gave you much wider access to like a PlayStation and a PlayStation 2 library, and then this box could just basically be a dummy box to just play all of, like, there are cool applications of this. Like, I guess what needs to happen with this Vita TV is, I guess, more on the service side, for me to find this to be more meaningful than it already is. I think it's an interesting product. I think it is a very interesting idea. I think maybe attaching it to the Vita name doesn't have a whole lot of weight to people. Maybe that goes either way, right? Like maybe to a lot of people, Vita just is meaningless as opposed to us in the games press or the enthusiast sort of game player who maybe likes the Vita but also knows that it's not exactly attached to a wildly successful product commercially.
Right.
So maybe that doesn't mean anything one way or the other. $100 is a damn good price point. I mean, that's why I bought an Apple TV, was for how cheap it was and the ability to AirPlay, video and audio straight onto a device that connects right to my TV.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's an interesting little idea, And
Yeah.
again, it's not something that I'm in any way anti, because, hey, why the hell not? If someone wants to buy that and they're going to sell it in Japan, I'm sure some people in Japan will be thrilled to have some tiny thing they can, play Vita games on their TV with. But
it all comes down to me how well this remote play stuff works, right? Like,
yeah.
And that is still an unproven. I don't believe any of the demos they do on stage, like any of the stuff you see at press events, like that is all magical BS to me at this point. Not because they are necessarily trying to trick any of us, but because wireless is so specific to the house you are in,
right,
and the way you have your setup, that until I know that works where for example, in my last apartment in San Francisco, the Wii U was technically within range where I should have been able to bring it to my bed, but it couldn't make it through this wall, so it didn't work. So it's like, yeah, technically this works if you look at the technical specifications, but in reality, in practice, what my apartment is made out of made that not work. So it may as well have been a meaningless feature. So Vita TV, I think, my conclusion on that is interesting until I see some real-world examples of this remote play and how well that does or doesn't work. And then if maybe I can somehow get one into my setup and see if that works in my setup. Because if it does, I can see some interesting applications. But until then, I think it's more of a, that's cool.
Until then, it's something Jeff is going to import and then use just to take footage of supported Vita games, and that's going to be about it. So. And
yeah, I guess maybe not super confident this thing comes to the U.S. this year, but my guess is it does eventually.
Yeah.
Did it say when it's coming out in Japan?
I didn't see a date. I wasn't looking that hard. There's also some other, they announced some other Vita model too, didn't they?
They did, with lots of colors.
Yeah, there's 6
out
new
November,
colors.
Out November 14th.
Those motherfuckers with the colors. That is the one thing I will never get over with Japan and Western gaming, is that Japan still always gets the fucking cool colors, and we never get them, and I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, that's true. The 3DS, that's true of the Vita. I'd say it's been mostly true of handhelds in general.
Yeah.
But I guess this Vita TV, November 14th is this, well, even if the PS4 came out in Japan, it would probably follow a traditional model of coming out in December, a couple weeks after the U.S. So I don't know. This seems like this kind of takes its place as a product that Sony can launch in Japan, and my guess is they take a wait-and-see attitude. We don't hear a whole lot about this coming out in the U.S., but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like this in the spring.
Indeed.
Let's see.
Nice.
So they announced their launch lineup for Japan: Assassin's Creed 4, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Doki Doki Universe. That game was at PAX at that Sony event we went to, but I didn't play it.
That's right, it was, yeah.
I think Drew played it and found it to be kind of inscrutable for the kind of event that we were at, which was
a lot of
loud
those
music and very indie. They were definitely trying different things, so didn't get a good handle on what that was. Dream Club, host girls on stage, sure, why not? Drive Club, #Drive Club. Please get it right, Joystick.
Yes.
#Drive Club.
For God's sakes.
Dynasty Warriors 8, Extreme Legends, FIFA 14, Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn beta, which I guess people will be able to bring over their character data from the PS3 to PS4, which is cool, if you're into that. Ho Come, which is a pretty cool looking game.
Also another one of those inscrutable games that you cannot identify what the hell you're supposed to be doing in an event.
Yep. Killzone Shadowfall, Natural Doctrine. I don't know what that is. Puzzle for Sudoku, Tomato e Mahjong Plus. I hope I appropriately butchered that title. But you can't launch in Japan without a Mahjong game.
No.
That is just required. Resogun Strider. So I guess that gives us a sense of when that game is coming out everywhere else.
Yeah.
Watch Dogs and Yakuza Restoration, which does that mean it's a remake?
I don't know.
I don't know anything about the Yakuza games.
I'm not a big Yakuza follower, so I don't really know. But hey, that's still a popular franchise in Japan, right? And
yeah, I've heard good things about it. I tried to play that zombie one, thinking that would be my entryway into that.
That
series,
I'm told is a very different thing.
No, it's bad. It's just it's not good at all. I would like to play a Yakuza game at some point because I've looked at YouTube videos where you are fighting tigers for no reason, and that game seems like the right kind of idiocy that I could really get behind. But yeah, so Yakuza Restoration, PS4 and PS3 and Vita. Says Vita crossplay was mentioned during the press conference, but no exact features. So Yakuza. So that's their launch lineup. Yeah.
It's a launch lineup.
Yeah.
It is totally a launch lineup.
Yeah. Is Dream Club host girls on stage? I wanted to say hot girls on stage, but maybe that's true as well.
Maybe that's.
I don't know. I don't know what's in the Dream Club.
Dream Club. Also in the news. Moving away from Sony, just slightly.
Sure.
This weekend saw a little bit of a leak for the Xbox One.
I didn't see this. The videos got taken down before I saw anything, but
it got reposted. It's been reposted several places now. But
it's like interface stuff, right?
Yeah. So someone has an Xbox One in their home. That's not surprising. Lots of people probably do. Microsoft employees, friends and family kind of stuff. There's a beta going on, I guess, for the dashboard and other related services. So someone decided it would be a great idea to film themselves going through the dashboard, trying some stuff out, what have you. It's some kid, like a teenager.
I was gonna say, like, was there a voice? Can we pinpoint? Is this some dumb teenager?
There's very briefly a face too, which says that this person was really not thinking through what they were doing.
That poor father.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Someone's gonna be screwed. I mean, and to be fair, they didn't really show anything.
I don't know. It could be either, but it's either way. Those poor parents who their kid tried to go for brief YouTube infamy, and oh man, are people gonna get in trouble?
Yeah, that sort of thing never goes well. I understand his mentality. I understand why he went for it the way he did. But that was a bad move all around.
Yeah.
All we really got out of it was some dashboard stuff. It showed off a little bit of some of the favorites functionality where you can just
hot girls on stage.
No. It's where you can put basically on the dashboard. There's a bunch of spaces now where you can put stuff that you are most familiar with and interested in, so that stuff is always right there. You don't have to go darting around the dashboard. They also showed he has a little bit, like he went into Rise, started playing the opening cutscene, and then backed out of back into the dashboard where and then it showed the game was still playing the cutscene while you were in the dashboard doing other stuff, which was kind of a neat little trick and what have you. Nothing really that fancy, nothing really that exciting, kind of stuff that we sort of knew was going to be there, but more than anything else, how bad do you feel for this kid right now for all the shit he's about to get into?
It's just, everyone. This is part of the reason why I am glad I am 28. I am outside of the YouTube generation in the sense that everything that I did when I was younger, I would have uploaded stuff like this. I mean, but like I would have been stupid. I would have been really dumb.
Definitely. I
am just glad that I didn't have that as a potential problem for myself because like that just seems like that would have been super easy. Like you feel the kid's an idiot. But the problem these days is that it's so easy to be an idiot in public.
Yes.
That you feel bad that the mistakes are on such a grander scale, whereas the mistakes I made were just me making those mistakes. And it was just my friends or my family that found that stuff, and not the entire world. And that kid probably is going to get talked about at school for that. Like it's just everything about it bothers me.
I'm trying to scale this to my own experience. I'm trying to think about the most embarrassing online thing I ever did. And mine was when I was, a teenager, I was in bands and stuff, and I had just started using the internet a lot. So I was on like news groups and stuff for like various music genres and what have you. and we were touring with this Southern California band called Meal Ticket, who were ska band, punk band, whatever. They were relatively well liked in the mid '90s. And while we were touring with them, we found out they were breaking up, and they had another band. Some of the members were going to go start, and no one told me that this was supposed to be like a secret thing. Like, this was not supposed to be, told to anyone, that they were like planning on using their connections to try and get this new band going and some other stuff. So me being a dumb 14, 15-year-old or whatever, and, just starting to get a taste of the whole, I'm online, people are talking to me, this is great, this is, validation, I want to be a center of attention kind of thing. I posted on the one of the news groups that, hey, I heard this band's breaking up, best to them, love these guys, sorry to hear it. And then I get an angry phone call like, what the fuck did you just do? Within like a day, I found out, what the fuck did you just do? I apparently screwed up their best laid plans, and I had no idea, and I felt like the worst person that had ever lived, because I love those guys. I felt like such a dick. Now I'm trying to take that level of feeling like an asshole that I had and multiplying that by several orders of magnitude and adding legal implications to the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess people are pointing out in the comments that there were other videos, like it was to his personal YouTube account. He didn't make like a new one, and so there are videos of his family, and his full name is there.
Oh no!
And like it is just all sorts of like really just not thought out at all. Like it just really bums me out all around. Just
my heart is just snapping for this kid, because it's gonna go so badly for him, and I know he probably meant absolutely nothing harmful by it, but this is when someone tells you don't fucking do anything with this shit, you have to listen. Maybe, I don't know, maybe his parents never told him. Maybe they were like, yeah, I don't know, I got this Xbox from work, here, fuck around with it, do whatever, and he just didn't know. But probably not. He probably knew what he was doing.
People are talking up this Knack trailer. We're gonna try something. I'm gonna see if I can screen share this trailer.
Okay.
I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're gonna try. Do you see something?
I see a black screen.
You see a black screen. What about that? You see anything?
Yeah, it's moving, but I see the whole Google window.
Okay, it should change over.
No, I'm not getting anything.
No sound, nothing.
Nah.
Damn it. So okay, I will link it to you. Oh, I guess maybe the screen share is just the video prop. Do you even get the video?
I see the video. It's not really running very well or anything, so I don't think. Right. We're trying stuff.
Yeah, I guess. How do I turn this off? Okay. Well, that didn't work. Basically, they start showing trailers for various games, and the audio is in Japanese, but then someone dubs everything about the trailer in real time, and it's pretty bad.
Oof.
Pretty bad. So yeah, there's if you just look for funny translation trailers on YouTube, it seems pretty funny, but unfortunately, that's not going to work. Let's see what else. What else we got going on here?
You want to talk about Kojima? We could talk about Kojima.
I don't.
Do we even want to talk about this? Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too.
I mean, then it got more complicated over the weekend, and I wasn't keeping up with he responded to people's criticisms, and I'm not fully caught up, so I feel difficult saying too much, except that the Metal Gear series has always had a actually surprisingly wide range of representing sexual orientations and identities. If you actually go through the whole range of characters, and to the series' credit, has often not made that center stage, right? It's just the characters are who they are, and if you look into them, you can see, oh, this is actually what their identities are, and that's really great. That's how that stuff should be handled. By and large, is having a wide range of different types of characters, but that differentiating characteristic isn't the one thing that makes them different. But yeah, this stuff, I don't know. I mean, Kojima, I don't think has ever portrayed himself as anything other than sometimes being kind of dirty. If you follow his Twitter account, he makes sex jokes all the time and
Sure.
laughs about boobs, and it's not a surprise that that stuff translates to his games. And I don't, at least he's honest about it, I guess, is my
He's
end
definitely
of the day
blunt
feeling about it. Yeah, he is who he is, and his games are what they are, and hell, half the problem I have with those games is that he tries to pretend they're more nuanced and great than they actually are. Like, I don't know, he takes himself a little too seriously for how the games actually play out. But that's I'm not the biggest Metal Gear fan in the world. I liked 1 and
Neither am
3. I think 2 and 4 are complete trash. And I think 1 and 3 are both. 1 was a groundbreaking game, and I think 3 is the best realization of that series going forward, and had the best story of any of them, mostly because it didn't go all the way up its own ass for the most part. But I don't know. I think it's creepy, but I've sort of gotten over it, because I just don't take that series that seriously anymore.
I look at it this way: the character's costume is weird from the get-go. He says there's a contextual reason for it. That's fine. I don't think the contextual reason is necessarily going to justify having a character that is a fucking military sniper in bra and panties, but, whatever. It is what it is. Again, I think it's colored by the fact that I am not the biggest fan of this franchise to begin with, that I am not necessarily offended or outraged by it, because I kind of didn't really care that much anyway. I know a lot of people love this series. A lot of people are very much looking forward to this game. That's great. This character seems like a weird one. There are a lot of weird fucking characters in MGS, some of which have rubbed me the wrong way over the years in various ways. I'm not expecting this to be all that much different than any other experience I've had with this franchise, if I even play it.
I think 5 looks good. I think 5 looks
yeah,
I think I'm going to play 5, and I consider the Metal Gear games like must plays, if only because Kojima is such an eccentric, and I am happy there are designers out there just making exactly the game they want to make.
I am too.
And so
that series for me, it's not. I don't know how to explain my problem with that series other than to say it's just too much nonsense for me, and not in a way that I find particularly endearing or entertaining, but in a way that is just so hyperactive and so scatterbrained. Yeah, he has, he brings a lot of things together, in the ends of these games, and sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. For me, it's all just a million fevered, child imagination ideas, all kind of being thrown at something with like a loose narrative kind of tying it all together. And for me, I don't know. It just has never done it for me in a way that like 3 is the only one I came even close to finishing.
Sure.
And I just I know what happens in the games. Like I eventually go back and read through what happens, and I'm like, oh well, all right, that makes sense. Sure. But I just don't like them. I just don't like them, and I'm sorry. I don't like them. I'm sorry. I know the world wants the gaming world at large is in love with this series. It just doesn't do it for me.
You are forgiven.
As far as this series, this story goes, I think the biggest issue was just Kojima had some incorrect word uses there when he was describing some of this stuff. It maybe fueled the fire a little more than it needed to.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Also, me doing that screen sharing thing turned off like the real time editing.
Oh no!
I have to do this in real time now.
Okay,
well, I don't know.
Do that. Make sure you do that, because otherwise no one will see my face. And
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to. Oh, there's actually like a YouTube app. Watch YouTube videos together. What happens if?
Do you want to try it again?
Accept.
We're trying. We're gonna try this again.
Yeah. Look, we experiment. We try different things. It's trying to load the app. I don't. You just see a gray box?
I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't see. Let's try that one more time.
We're trying this again. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it just sits at this gray screen. Well,
this is what we get for trying to learn on the fly. Maybe we should actually do this in our own time.
I guess. Oh, but now how do I get this thing to go away? Okay, there we go.
You don't now.
Oh, it's going back and forth again. Yay!
Okay, good. Yay! We fixed it. Hey. Hi.
Okay, let's see. So other small headlines: Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon sales break 1 million boxed copy, a possibility. Good for you, Blood Dragon. You were fun.
Yeah, you were all right.
Um,
Other small headline: apparently GTA 5 may be the most expensive game ever produced.
I never believe that stuff. Didn't that just like completely. What is the website or the newspaper that said that?
I don't know, some Scottish newspaper, I think.
Oh,
Which
well,
I
okay,
mean,
maybe they might have a little more legitimacy.
yeah, I don't know, but it's like the quote was 170 million pounds, which translates to something like 266 million dollars to develop and market. So I could see that being true, I guess. I don't know. That game is probably going to make most of that money, like if not well more than that money back. So
Yeah,
sure,
and who knows how much that is marketing.
yeah.
That's the amount of money they're spending promoting that game is most likely astounding. Soul Sacrifice Delta due out in March 2014 for Vita. Soul Sacrifice seemed all right. Didn't do a
Sure.
whole lot for me, but people seem to really like it. So
Yeah.
I think what's more exciting potentially is Phantasy Star Nova announced for Vita, being made by TriAce, which is a offline or online co-op up to 4-player game that's
What
coming
did
out sometime next year.
what did TriAce last make? Okay, yeah, I remember that. That was pretty good.
I'm looking. With the geez, Little Battlers Experience W Super Custom.
Not the best in the series.
I don't know what that means. I'm gonna click
Sounds
on it
pretty
though.
great.
Oh, great. There's nothing in the Wikipedia entry.
Of course not.
Sure, Little Battlers Experience W Super Custom. I believe it.
Yeah.
That sounds legitimate.
If we still had quests, I would totally make a quest right now to fill out that page right now.
All right. So we're near the end of all these headlines. So I will point out to people if you want to ask some questions in the chat at me, and I will take a look at those in a moment as we begin to wind down the show. Yeah, I don't know. This Phantasy Star Nova mostly just makes me wonder. I want to know what the hell happened to Phantasy Star Online, or what's the new one? Is that just is it 2
it's the one
Phantasy Star
Jeff's
Online?
always complaining about, right? Like he wants more Phantasy Star, and that
Yeah,
they
Phantasy Star
never.
Online 2. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it never came out here. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? What the hell? It was shown at
Well,
PAX last year.
Are people? I mean, I don't know. Is the demand there for that game?
It's more. I just want to know. It was shown at PAX and then just disappeared. Like they translated it, or at least went down the path.
They were starting to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they just decided the expense was too great. You know, wasn't worth it in the end. I don't know.
Yes.
Phantasy Star. Who's playing Phantasy Star right now? Jeff. That's who. Who else?
Yeah.
No one. I don't know.
Well, Jeff needs games too, Alex.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy X and X2 HD remasters to be bundled with a special edition Vita. I really liked Final Fantasy X. That was probably the last Final Fantasy I really got into. I dare say I loved Final Fantasy X.
I haven't liked the Final Fantasy since it was 2D.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't play 7, 8, or 9?
I started playing 7 and 6, and I think I might have started playing 9. I don't know. Those games just never did it for me. It's not my thing.
Final Fantasy 8 for life.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Look, again, it's one of those series. I totally get why people are way into it. Just not for me. Just not for me.
I don't know. That seems to be all the headlines I've got. Do you have any
questions then?
Okay. Ganthit 2814. Are either of you going to pick up Pokemon X or Y?
Yeah.
That series just burnt me out a long time ago. If someone wants to make a compelling argument that series has changed enough to take another look at it, it seems more that it caters to its audience, and
yeah, I was just too old to get into Pokemon when you were a kid. And I never had any teenage or adult friends that were super into it, so I never got into that series. Sorry, I don't think I will be getting Pokemon X or Y.
Spanking had asked, Spanking Addict, interesting name.
Very good. Yes.
Hey, to each their own. When is Walking Dead season 2 coming? Any guess? Sometime this year. My guess is that we'll hear more about it when AMC starts ramping up for season 4 of the TV show. Seems like they're going to kind of smartly, whether it's a collaboration or not, I don't know, but I would be mighty surprised if we weren't hearing about both of those at the same time. Do you watch that show? You probably watched that show.
I'm sorry, what show was it? I just got caught by a chat question.
The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah. I watched...
terrible.
I watched all the way up through halfway through last season, every episode.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of fell off at the mid-season break. I went back and I watched the last episode and a couple of the other scattered episodes, and I was just kind of like, eh. I want to like it so hard. I really do. Like, there are certain things that show does really well from a production standpoint that are awesome. I love it. From a storytelling perspective, it's never been consistent. There are like you're lucky if you get 2 episodes in a row that are great. You know, it's like if you get 2 solid episodes that like actually do some strong storytelling, character building stuff, then you have hit the fucking jackpot with that series. Because then because at that point you're in store for like 4 more episodes of people standing around doing nothing.
It's almost like if AMC was to look at its other shows that have really strong primary showrunners and weren't really cheap, and change the showrunner on its flagship show every year, that maybe there would be a little more consistency to that show. I'll keep watching it because it's a zombie TV show, and that's good enough for me. And like the special effects are awesome, and that's like a baseline enough for me to tune in for a week, for an hour every week. But yeah, that show is not good.
It tries so hard, and it does some things so well, but it just cannot pull it all together in a way that is meaningful, and that is really unfortunate, because, man, there was nothing I could have been more excited for when that show was announced than a serialized zombie television show.
From Frank Darabont.
Yeah! Everything about that sounded fan-fucking-tastic.
Yep.
And, yeah, it just has not held together in a way... I went back and I watched a couple of those first season episodes, and man, even when for season 1 like hit a down note, it was nowhere near as bad as anything in 2 and 3. Season 1 was full of promise and joy and happiness, and then as soon as season 2 came around, it just fell the fuck apart, and that is a real bummer. Real bummer.
Yeah. Ape Tree points out, Phantasy Star Online 2 PC version accidentally wiped people's computers with a recent patch and update.
Ah.
So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
A lot of people shouting. Not so many. Oh, you know what? Here's one for you. CalNet 101 asks, "What'd you think of the new RoboCop trailer?"
I'm a little conflicted on that one, because I went in all prepared to like just hate it on principle, because you know, of course I would. I fucking love RoboCop. RoboCop's one of the best movies ever made. If you can find a way to separate the raging RoboCop fanboy within you and just look at it as, here is a modern action movie that has a robotic cop in it and also Gary Oldman, there's something to it. Like, it looks kind of like it could be entertaining. It has a good cast. I mean, it's certainly fucking Michael Keaton and Gary Oldman and all those people. Yeah, there's stuff in there that seems like could be pretty great. It's really hard for me to do that because I adore RoboCop as a film so much. I am a Paul Verhoeven fan most through his entire career, with the exception of like the occasional Hollow Man or something like that. So it's hard. It's real hard for me to look at that and go, well, I could be entertained by this, because I know the whole time I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm just like, no one's going to say, I'd buy that for $1. There's going to be no Clarence Boddicker moment of bitches leave, guns, guns, guns. None of that. None of that's going to be in there. And I'm going to be so angry if I watch it and none of that is in there. I know I'm going to be.
It's also a bad trailer.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a bad... I thought, like, I like RoboCop. I really like RoboCop. But it's not... Like, it's not the way you talk about it. The reverence you have for it is not the same for me. And I looked at this new one, and it was just a boring trailer. I thought like it was poorly cut, and it didn't. I don't know. It just didn't get me excited, and it felt like for me that had so little to do with its lack of connections or comparability to the original film or RoboCop 2. Like I just thought it was a bad trailer. So and I think these types of movies have a real problem when they get to the marketing, because it's a question of how much do you cater to you and how much are you catering to trying to get a wider audience interested in. And I think it's almost where they should just have separate trailers, right? Like follow the Ubisoft model. You have trailers that are fan service, like for all the stuff you're going to get in there that's like, hey, we're hitting this note and this note and this note and this stuff's here, and get excited for it, because then you sort of wipe the table on having to include that stuff in a trailer that is more about getting the wider audience interested in, an action film that has heard of RoboCop and is like, oh, I liked that movie, but can't recall lines or remember just how fucking violent that film was.
Right.
And so I think especially these initial trailers, it makes no one happy, I think. Or it's very difficult to do that.
Well, I mean, and you saw what happened with that fucking Total Recall remake. I mean, that thing bombed. Like,
I never ended up seeing it. The trailers were so boring that I just passed entirely.
Exactly. It looked like the dullest thing ever. It didn't really make any noteworthy box office splash. Critics kind of hated it, and it went nowhere. The problem. Maybe someday someone will look back and say, like, okay, remaking these sort of interesting, late 80s, early 90s curiosities as bland-ass modern action movies isn't actually getting us anywhere. Maybe it'll take a while for that to happen. Maybe they'll actually have to get around to remaking several more of these before they finally get it. But I feel like the implication there that people don't actually want to go see these things might be there, and maybe someone should pick up on that. Just a thought.
And we're really starting to scrape the barrel when we get news that they're going to remake Shivers.
Yeah.
Which I like Shivers, right? Like, especially as, for what it represents in terms of, Cronenberg as an artist and where that represented where he was in sort of his career timeline. But, like, Shivers? Like, just go make a new movie. Like, Shivers doesn't mean anything to anyone except, like, you and I. Right,
yeah.
like that's like
it barely means anything to me.
Right,
so.
It's not even a particularly good Cronenberg film.
No.
Like it's just an interesting curiosity, especially in the spectrum of his career. But like, just take the premise and call it something else. Like, what is the benefit of calling that film Shivers except to get? Well, I guess like it gets people talking, right? Like if a movie about the same premise, we wouldn't have gotten me to mention it. But then that's such a cynical way to make a film that it just upsets me. So
most films are pretty cynically made, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so.
I guess that's true. Jonah Erickson asks, are you guys getting GTA 5 on launch or sometime earlier? Do you know who will review it? That is a question for... You're not reviewing it, right?
I am not reviewing it.
I am not reviewing it.
I am getting it at launch.
I have an inkling of the answers to those questions, but I'm also not sure how much I'm allowed to say out loud. So
we will be reviewing Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah, there will be stuff about Grand Theft Auto 5, but that's going to be handled mostly by the guys in San Francisco. Let's see. Why don't we? One more question.
Sure.
Blackwatch. Are you excited for any current generation games like Batman: Arkham Origins? Batman Arkham Origins, maybe not the one to pluck out.
So that's funny because I'm actually seeing that game tomorrow.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
It might. Here's my guess. It'll be pretty good, right?
It'll be Batman.
But like 3 of those so quickly, especially given this one's not made by Rocksteady. I'm not saying I'm going to.
2 years apiece.
It is, but I don't know. It feels like they're cranking on those. This one particularly feels a little bit uninspired, I guess. Yeah. Especially when you go to prequel territory, that mostly just feels like you're saying, well, Rocksteady's making the real one, and we don't want to mess with that timeline, so here's one before Rocksteady gets to release theirs. So I mean, I'll wait and see. You know, this is actually an instance where like I will wait and see what the reviews are like, or it'll be a game that when we have a lull in January or February, when that PC version is real cheap on Steam, then I'll pick it up and then I'll play it because it'll probably be completely serviceable. I just nothing about it has so far suggested it's going to be a real step forward.
As far as, I'm looking forward to. I mean, GTA is kind of the big one right now.
Sure.
There's some other stuff. I mean, there's a couple of games coming later down the road. Like I'm looking forward to South Park a lot. I think that game's
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And
everything I've seen of that game so far has made it look like a really filthy Paper Mario, which sounds fucking fantastic.
That's not going to come out this year, is it?
No, they keep saying holiday this year, and they just haven't given it a specific date. But I'm pretty sure it's just going to hit in November. Because that game's been done.
They should put that out in January.
They won't. They want to hit the holidays. It's Ubisoft. Ubisoft has never met a November release date it didn't like. So they will find a way.
I feel like January would just give that game room to breathe.
Yeah.
In a way that November won't.
Yeah, I know, and I'm with you on that. But for a big license thing, I think they don't care. I think they're like, whatever, we can get this out and people will buy it, and that'll be that. And it's timed, I think. If they're smart, they're timing it around the new season of South Park somewhere, because the new one starts at the end of this month, and then it probably ends, I'm guessing, in November, so it wouldn't be surprised if they try to put it out around the time, like the season finale for that.
Maybe they'll even be smart enough to, they make those episodes fast enough, they could probably even do something like a tie-in episode that set that game up.
Yeah, so that would be real easy for them to do. I'm expecting November. I don't think they've said the specific date yet, but... and weirdly enough, I'm kind of looking forward to WWE 2K14. I don't know why. That's just a game that as much as I've been down on wrestling games for the last few years, I just kind of want to play all those WrestleMania matches. I don't know why. They hooked me with that thing. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm excited for that. So I don't know. So there's a few things. What anything else from the current gen you're hoping for? You want to play?
I mean that covers both. I think Beyond Two Souls I will play as a curiosity. I did like Heavy Rain.
I do want to know what the fuck is happening in that game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every time I see new footage of her running around as a soldier in the Middle East, and I'm just like, I gotta. That's a game where I just gotta know.
Totally.
So I'm looking forward to that, but maybe not for the reasons that David Cage wants me to. And I don't know. Yeah, I think we covered most of the other those, but a lot of people asking in the chat about. Not Beyond Two Souls, Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, which I have not played too much of. I played about 20 minutes of it pre-PAX.
Reviews are starting to hit today.
Yeah, reviews are hitting today. That seem pretty positive. But I am in the middle of Outlast, but I am going to record a quick look of Amnesia, Machine for Pigs tonight. So that'll go up on the site tomorrow for that game's release. And then on Wednesday, we will do a combo episode of Spookin' with Scoops, make a little more progress in Outlast, and start making some progress in Amnesia. But I played a little bit of Outlast past where we last left off, because I've been kind of doing like a half an hour chunks with my wife. That's about as much as she can take before her nerves are rattled, and then we have to turn it off.
Right.
So I'll probably check out a little more of that. Plus, also, like, these horror games, I try to play them at night, and then I just don't play them for very long, so it takes a long time to get through them. Yeah, so I unfortunately don't have much more to share about Amnesia, but I will later this week. Do you have anything else going on this week on the site?
I am reviewing NHL 14 as soon as I get some more online time in with people, probably tomorrow. I am going to go see. I think I said last week I was going to go see those Warner Brothers games, but then I had the week wrong. So I'm actually going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to see Batman, see DC, Scribblenauts, and some other stuff. And then other than that, I think I'm actually going to finally get around to recording a couple of videos I've been meaning to do in between all these other review games. I'm sure some other game will show up at some point, but until then, I'm going to try and tape as much crap as I possibly can within a couple of days. So that's it for me.
Cool. I've got a couple more interviews from PAX going up, one of which will actually address a question in the chat that is a pretty interesting question. I scrolled too far down to grab it, but basically he was asking whether the ERCB should ever consider having sort of an addiction metric for games, especially as these conversations about whether some of these social games involve gambling. And I actually had a chance to chat with 2 lawyers at PAX who did a panel about basically what the video game industry needs to be considering going forward to avoid. They avoided regulation in terms of violence and sexual content, but they are not out of the woods in terms of avoiding regulation in terms of essentially the term addiction. And we're specifically speaking to a lot of these social games like that Zynga puts out, and the different kinds of games that are purely based on chance. And so I had a pretty interesting conversation with them talking about what the possible implications are about that. So that question will actually get answered in a dump truck later this week. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there'll be other stuff. I have to kind of figure out what my week is right now anyway. But that will bring.
Oh, I just remembered one more thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
There will be a new episode of the Power Bombcast this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll be up on Friday.
Why this week?
So the new pay-per-view is on Sunday, so we're going to try and record it Wednesday or Thursday this week, put it up on Friday, so we'll have our predictions for that, as well as talk about the things that have been going on in the WWE and other leagues for the last month, and also I will talk at greater length about Dan Reichert and my adventures in Los Angeles at SummerSlam. There will be some Ric Flair stories in there, I'm sure.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right, well, we look forward to that, and we'll if the embargoes are up, we will chat about your WB games on Friday.
Most definitely.
So thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys again on Friday.
Ow!